and say welcome. Thank you for joining our first Faculty Friday. Today we feature Corrine Hinton, or Dr. Corrine Hinton, of the English department, and we'll do this in 3 phases. So in the initial phase, 15 minutes-ish or so, Corinne's going to talk to you about the English major, minor, writing minor, all the various things that you can do in English, and not just simply she will be saying it in English, but in the English department, and a conversation about why it's her jam. And Jamie is also here, Dr. Cantrell, and I am here. I'm Dr. Julian, but Doug works as well. And just sort of 15 minutes to sort of talk about English or ask questions about it or why are you into it. Then we'll move into a phase where I will ask ridiculous questions of Corinne and Jamie about various things about them that are not personal enough that we can't record it, but are also hopefully interesting enough to engage conversation that we all can include ourselves in. And then we'll conclude by giving Corinne about 15 minutes to say, hey, here's my research jam. Here are the things that I do, the things I'm interested in, why, and what I do with them. Okay. So that being said, welcome. Corinne, what would you like to say about English?
You wanted me to talk about the major, the programs first?
Yeah, talk about the major, the program, what kind of students come, what they do with it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I love how our program is set up because there is a lot of cross-pollination between students who are what we call maybe sort of straight English majors. Like I'm looking at Sam Gallegos on the screen as a straight English major or minor. But then we have a lot of students who are majors in English with intention for teacher certification, right? We have EC through 6, we have 4 to 8, and we have 7 to 12 teacher certifications. And technically they are majors within the field, even as pre-teacher prep students. And then a lot of minors. So we have a lot of double majors also. I noticed a lot of students like to pair political science and English or history and English. So a lot of students will take English and add it on as a double major or add another relevant degree field on as a major. And then in terms of minors, I think our department, LCMC, we live within a combined department. We were probably the first actual department established on campus. Most of our degrees are built into programs. So the history program, political science program, but earlier perhaps than everybody else, a couple of years ago, we combined with our mass comm colleagues and said, let's just be a department. So we now live, if you don't know, within a department called Literature, Composition, Media, and Communications, fondly LCMC. And within that, I think our department is responsible for more minors than maybe any other department on campus. We have the English minor, we have a writing studies minor, we have a creative writing minor, we have a drama minor, we have a humanities minor, we have a women's gender and sexuality studies minor. Jamie, I hope I got that right, and a communications minor. So I think like between any, thank you, Jamie, between any combination of those, we see a great deal of students who are just broadly interested in the liberal arts and in the humanities, and that's really what makes my heart happy. And for me, I've always been profoundly interested in teaching teachers to teach writing, even if they have no intention to teach writing, because one of my favorite mantras is writing matters to all teachers because it matters for all students. So it doesn't matter what grade you're going to teach, E to 1622, doesn't matter. Writing is going to matter. And so I take a really vested interest in helping prepare teachers responsibly and how to integrate writing into their classes in really creative ways beyond, oh, I'm just going to have them write an essay about it. Writing is so much more than that. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about our programs, plural.
Fair enough. What type of, what do people generally, I'm going to play like I don't know.
Yeah.
I do know. But we're going to play that I don't. What do students do with the writing studies minor or with an English degree from A&M Texarkana?
So I have seen a lot of applications, which is great. English is probably one of the most versatile degrees a student can get. And it's because English may be at the superficial level, thinking about like reading texts and responding to texts and that kind of stuff. But really, what it teaches is argumentation. It teaches close analysis of language, which is probably one of the most important skills a human being on the planet can develop. I mean, if politics teaches us nothing, they don't call this the age of misinformation for nothing. And it's mostly because people are losing the ability to critically think and analyze and check and verify that what they are getting from mass media and social media has a truth value, or what the truth value of is that message. And so we've seen students do a lot of things with their degrees because of the emphasis English places on critical analysis, on textual analysis, on rhetorical analysis, on critical thinking and creative thinking, quite frankly. And so we have had students certainly go to graduate school to get into programs in English because they want to teach at higher education, or they're interested in advancing into like library sciences, or we have a PhD student who's in an adult literacy program right now who's going into adult literacy. Creative writing. We have published authors who have come out of our program, who have done, we've got a published author who's done young adult books, and we also have a published author who's published poetry, and so and has won awards. Brittany Ray Crowell has won awards now. She's an award-winning poet who's now at a PhD program in Houston. So certainly like the most obvious tracks, whether that's teaching, advanced graduate studies, creative writing, publishing, and editing. But then we also have some really more maybe utility value career paths that students don't often associate with English. For example, corporate communications, in marketing, in mass communications, and social media management. This is why a lot of students end up sort of folding in mass comm and English together, because then they sort of get the best of both worlds. We've had students who have gone through and done stints in journalism, writing for local papers and local print publications and online publications. We've had people work at like TXK Today and the Gazette and Her Magazine and Four States. And certainly probably one of the most notable of our graduates, because she's now the morning anchor on KTAL, is Fernanda Hernandez, who's rocking it out as a double English and mass comm major, who's now started writing and then went into living local, which I have to be very careful to say that correctly because there's a lot of alliteration. She started there, and now she's, the face of the morning anchor on television. But, you can work in corporate, you can work in social media, you can work in marketing, and certainly I would always argue that English majors make the best attorneys on top of that, because not only do you learn how to tear down an argument, you also learn how to build some of the most solid arguments you can, which is really what law is about.
Excellent. So maybe drill in a little bit more specifically to your own experience. The writing studies minor is new. What would you say to folks that are in the room or watching it on video of why one would drop whatever minor they had and come on over to the writing studies minor? What does it look like? What does it do? Why would one want to do such a thing to themselves?
So first of all, I'd say almost every student who comes through A&M is a four-year student. If you have 1301 and 1302 credit, you're already 2 courses into a minor. I mean, boom, done, it's there. The rest of it is really a choose your own adventure among a slate of courses, because it's designed to be versatile to meet the needs of the kinds of writing that students want experiences in, whether that's academic writing, creative writing, writing across the curriculum, if they're on the teacher track and they want to add in. But for me, what I love about a writing studies minor is it's not just about improving skill. I think students hear writing studies minor, I'm going to do a lot of writing, but you also learn a lot about writing. People tend to forget that learning about writing is not just the skill of being able to put pen to paper or your fingers on the keyboard, but learning why every time you put something down, whether it's a text message or a Facebook post or a letter or an essay, anything that ends up in a linguistic output comes as a series of choices that a writer makes. And there's a reason why we learn what choices are more and less effective. And that's the learning about writing, not just learning to write, but learning about writing as its own set of knowledge. We have our own history, we have our own field and discipline. And so each of those courses is sort of a combined. There's the practicum part, which is doing the writing and getting feedback on your writing and helping give feedback to others on their writing, but it's also learning about the discipline of writing, how it's changed historically, what it looks like now, particularly with the prolific nature of digital and media writing. And so it's a really cool, for me, it's a really cool 21st century step into helping students equip themselves with skills that employers want. Doesn't matter where you're going to go, you're going to have to put something down on paper or in an email or on a report for somebody who is not yourself. And it sure does help if you can get that right the first time.
Spinning in the direction of getting to Q&A and getting more people involved in the conversation, how did you end up an English person? And Jamie, if you would answer too, and if anybody wants to hear mine, I will share. But I'm curious, Corrine, how did you end up in an English department getting degrees?
Yeah, so I've always been really good at reading and writing. I just never realized like you could get degrees in it. So as I was finishing up high school, my parents, I'm from an Air Force family. I was an Air Force brat. Both my parents are career Air Force enlisted. And I really wanted to follow in my parents' footsteps and join the service. And so I took steps in high school to do that. And when you get a full ride scholarship through Air Force ROTC, I was going to be a little bit wiser and go the officer route instead of enlisted because you make more money and you can go to college. But when they give you a 4-year ride, they pick your major for you. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but English is not a major that the Air Force wants you to pick. So it was not an option. And they decide for you. Like you get a list of things, and I'm looking at all these things. I'm like, I don't know any of that. And so I picked, and they wanted me to be a meteorology major. So when I started at Northern Illinois University in 1999, I was a meteorology major for my first 2 years, and then decided instead of doing the full 4 years and actually going into the service, I was going to do 2 years in state and just do my first 2 years of ROTC. But that allowed me to change my major. And as soon as they said, okay, you can change your major, I was at the thing, checking the paperwork and changing over to English. Because for me, I always believe that if something comes naturally to you, or you feel it's so easy that it feels like it's natural as a part of your essence, it's probably what you should be doing. And that's reading and writing and talking about language and talking about books. And reading more and talking with other word nerds like me, that was something that jazzed me. And so that's kind of how it happened. And then after my first 2 years at NIU, I transferred to go back home. Like many undergraduates, I did not want to continue to pay room and board. And so I moved back home to St. Louis. I moved back in with my parents and got a full-time job and finished my undergraduate degree as a transfer, non-traditional, going to school at night and everything closes at 5 p.m. student. And it was tough because in a lot of ways you feel sort of disconnected from your university, and there were no transfer student centers, no adult learning centers at that point. And I went to the Honors College, Pierre Laclede Honors College at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. And I took my first honors seminar, and it was a political science professor who was teaching. The entire seminar was just Plato and Aristotle. And about halfway through, I stayed after class and I was like, so how do I get your job? And he's like, what? I was like, how do I get to do this? Like, how do I get to teach college? How do I do that? He goes, you got to get a PhD. Done. Okay. And that's how it happened. I just kept going. And at some point I made the transition. My master's is an emphasis in American literature and African-American literature. And then at some point I made the transition over into writing and rhetoric and composition for the PhD. But it's because I love it all. I love it. I love all of it. So yeah, it's always been easy and it's been fun. And I don't care if I go to my grave with a crap ton of student loan debt. I get to live every day of my life doing what I think is the best job in the world. So it makes me happy. Oh, I see lots of hearts. You guys are the best. Thanks.
Jamie, do you want to tell your narrative?
Sure. Before I do though, let me just very publicly, since this meeting is being recorded, assert how delighted and utterly euphoric I am to learn that Dr. Corrine Hinton started her collegiate career as a meteorologist.
Yes, I did not know that story either, Jamie. I was like, if there is no other reason to do these, it is that. I did not know the
Well, and I
meteorology
have an
story.
equally, I think, surprising start as well. And I think that's why I feel such shared camaraderie in this very moment. So when let's see, I was enrolled at the University of New Orleans, and as I prepared to start my freshman year over the summer, my sister, who's 11 months older than I am, had already started college the year previously at a regional directional institution in Mississippi. So it was in-state. And I was already very much, branching out into a whole new world of out-of-state tuition politics, and just the very idea of living in New Orleans as an 18-year-old by myself. And at the last minute, I decided that it seemed too much of a mountain for me to climb. And I had originally enrolled at UNO as I think it's a sort of general studies student. And I think late in July, I transferred, uh, even though I hadn't started, but I quote unquote transferred to the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg, which has a very, very, very strong liberal arts college. USM in Hattiesburg has the nation's foremost archive on children's literature. And at the time, of course, I didn't know any of this. All I knew is that my sister was enrolled there and she was Greek, and I wanted to rush a sorority too. So I started at USM as, wait for it, a museum studies major within the fine arts department. Unfortunately, this meant that for the first 2 years of my undergraduate degree, I would have to pass studio art classes. So they put X-Acto knives in my hand that I had no idea what it was. Just charcoal, and I was carrying around toolboxes looking like a fisherman on campus. I was up at 8 a.m. classes, drawing nudes, and I was completely unprepared. I was interested in the curator side of museum studies. I in no way was artistic at all. In fact, even now I can't draw anything. But I did well in my design classes, and I sort of, stumbled my way through 3D design. And the longer I stayed in the program, the more I realized that it wasn't what I was best at. And I realized that because I was nearing the end of my freshman year and starting my sophomore year classes, and I had access to upper division courses in English. And I realized, I'm doing something that yes, I could do for the rest of my life. Yes, would give me joy. But it was by no means what the special skills set that I had, and the sort of, I really hate to posit it in this way, this sort of essentialist, aura that surrounded me around reading and writing and thinking. And I swapped majors into an English program, which devastated me because my mother had a master's in English education, and I didn't want to be like my mother in any way. And by the time I was a senior, and I was in small seminar classes with really committed and fascinating and wildly interesting faculty teaching, topics that just made you want to come to class. I was hooked. I remember a faculty member who taught a poetry class, a Greenwich Writers poetry class. And then I also remember a faculty member, she still teaches there, and she taught a environmental literature class when I was a senior. And I was walking out of class one day, and she looked at me and she said, "Have you ever thought about getting a master's degree?" And I said, "No." And she said, "I think you should apply to a women's studies program." And I said, "What's that?" Because at the time, our university didn't have a WGS minor or undergraduate program, although USM does now. And I applied to one graduate school. I had no one advise me. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a mediocre student at best as an undergrad. And I applied to the University of Alabama's Women's Studies program, which is the oldest women's studies program in the South, not saying much considering those programs were established in the 70s. And I got in, and that was my start.
I will say the best class I ever took was an honors seminar, but it was taught by one of our English faculty, and it was on the beats. It was an entire semester on the beats, and it was amazing.
Those poetry professors, there's something special for.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I also had a professor at NIU, Sean Shesgreen, and I think he's still around. He was like at the end of the semester as like you're such a great student, here, take a copy of my book. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And now I'm like, I see what you were doing there, sir. You had lots of those books left. But you know, it's there's a passion, I think, that a lot of that faculty are in the right place when they still smile when they teach. I think I love all of it. And Doug knows it's like, just tell me what you want me to teach. I'll just do it. I don't care. I'll just do it. I love it.
I will do mine quickly because I want to get into Q&A. I was a pre-optometry major.
Stop it.
It was. It was very calculated in the idea that everyone expected great things from me, and be doctor or something like that. They'd never presumed this type of doctor. I did not like science. I did not like doing math. I could do it. I just didn't enjoy it. And I was sitting in the basement of a life sciences building, trying to memorize dead animals, class, genome, and phylum, and hating every moment of my existence. And I went, I can't do this. And it goes directly to what both of you are talking about, is the love, right? The love. I loved my English courses. I was having fun. I was good at it. But I enjoyed it, right? I could do the other, but I didn't have any enjoyment. It sucked. And I thought, this is going to be my life, doing something I don't really like. Speaking of things we do like, we move into Q&A, and this gets a chance to Chandler and Catherine and Brooklyn and Shadriana and anybody else, Tyler, you included, can participate in. The Q&A includes everybody. But we'll start with Corrine. You have to answer first.
We get dibs. Okay. All right.
So we're going, and this is hard for you because where you'll claim your hometown is hard. We're going to go out to eat in your hometown. So whatever you want to think of as your hometown. Where are we eating and what are we having?
Oh my gosh. So St. Louis is the closest I rep for a hometown for me. It's where I did my undergrad and my graduate degrees. And I grew up just across the river in Belleville, Illinois. And St. Louis is like 45 minutes. So St. Louis feels like home for me. And if we're in St. Louis, we are going to barbecue. Where are we going? Oh gosh, hold on. I'll get the name of it. But we are having Frito pie. That's what we are having. And if you're not familiar with I don't know, there's something different about like St. Louis Frito pie, because like when people here have Frito pie, it's not the same. But you're either having a slinger or you're having, if you're having a slinger, you're having it from a diner that literally seats 4 people. So you have to wait outside until the 4 seats are open. It used to be run by a set of sisters who would cook and serve together for the longest time. Then one of the sisters passed. And I'm not sure if the other sisters, they're still holding it down, but she's at the diner. And a slinger, if you're not familiar, is a layer of hash browns. Like all of this is cooked on a griddle top because that's all they have. It's a griddle top and 4 seats. That's what you get. It's a layer of hash browns. This is also post-drinking food, in case you're curious. A layer of hash browns, a scoop of chili, then usually like diced sausage and bacon, followed by 2 eggs, preferably soft or medium, easy, right? And then all of the cheese and onion. That's a slinger. And it's pretty baller. And yeah. And if we're having barbecue, I will find the name of the place because it's been a little bit since I've been there. Craig can probably tell you because Craig goes too. We're having Frito pie, right? It's like a layer of Fritos, usually some kind of chili, but it's like a barbecue-y chili, not just straight chili. And then you can do pulled whatever you want on it. I do pulled pork because I think it's better than anything. And then, cheese, raw onions, just mush it all. It's crunchy. It's barbecue. It's pretty delicious. Oh, and like I think a little dollop of sour cream. Boop. Right on top.
Oh, now really, 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 really want a slinger.
Yeah, oh
Anyone
my God,
else?
it's so good. That's yeah. Let me find the name of it while somebody
Catherine.
else tells me where we're eating.
Brooklyn, Samantha, where are we going to go eat in your hometown, and what are we having?
Dang. I guess hometown for me would have to be Addison, Texas. It's a little suburban area over there in Dallas. There's two places I can think of. Oh, okay. Well, Tyler brought up the killer pizza spot, so there's three places I can think of. One of them is very nostalgic to me. It's called Burger Street. My dad used to take us there when he would get paid on Fridays, and it's like a regular burger joint, but it's so cool because it's just this really cool small joint. They have the best cherry limeades, the best milkshakes, and their curly fries beat any that I've had like ever. So Burger Street's definitely a good place to go. We have this place called Jay's Diner. Their French toast is absolutely wonderful. And then Serious Pizza in Deep Ellum. That place just slaps. Like you could just their pizza slices are absolutely huge. You can order their specials or you can get like specific toppings. But honestly, Dallas has a lot of really good eateries. But like I think Addison for me is one of my favorites because they have like the really cool, like low key like joints that you can go eat at. They have a lot of like vegan and vegetarian options that are like very like trendy but also delicious. They have like Greek food over there. They have everything. Like, everything.
I put the names of my spots in the chat because I remember it's Pappy's. It's Pappy's for the Frito pie. It's downtown, just past where I used to work when I worked for a brokerage firm. And then the Eat Right Diner is your tiny little 4-seater diner.
Adriana, you going to bring something to the party? Or are you just testing out your camera?
Yeah. So for me, that first, just to make sure I look decent. But for me, so I live in Spring, Texas, but I'm from Houston, Texas, the real Houston. So
To
for
the
me,
real Houston.
a local place near my granny's house when I used to go to school over there and live with her and everything. We'd always go to this place called Kim's Seafood. The same people, only the same two workers have been working there since I was like a baby, I guess. I don't know, but they're still there. So every time I'm in Houston, I go to Kim's Seafood and get fish and shrimp and a small little soda because that's just my order. And I love it down there. And if you want a snack, my go-to is always Shipley's Donuts. Whenever I'm able to go home, my first thing is like, let's go to Shipley's because I love they don't have it down here. At least I've heard they have a Shipley's, but I've never seen it or been to one. But if you're from Houston, most likely your favorite donut is Shipley's. Like I do not eat or like any other kind except for that. So every time I go home, that's where I go.
I'm going to Houston in February for an overnight and it includes a morning. So Shipley's is on the
Go
list.
to Shipley's, definitely. Yep. Those are the best.
All right, I'm going to read Chandler's because he posted a nice big long piece in the chat that won't show up on a recording. So Chandler's saying that from Huntington, Texas, we have one red light, so we were small. If you count the Brookshire's Deli and the New Way gas station, we have 6 restaurants in town. I'd suggest Dean's Meat Market and Deli, fried catfish, since we're the home of the Fried Catfish Festival, which I did not know. Papa's Pit Barbecue and Sonic for drinks and dessert. Our Sonic is a semi-finalist Dr. Pepper ranking every year. Killer Sonics in Huntington, Texas. Do not go to the Mexican restaurant. It used to be a front for the drug cartel, and it isn't that great. Give your money to the wrong people and eat bad food. That's definitely something I would like to avoid. Does anybody else want to bring in?
Funny.
Catherine, yeah, do it.
I'm also from Houston, just like Shadriana or Anna. And I think one of the things that will always be my go-to is any taco truck. Yeah. Any taco truck on Houston, they're so good. I haven't had any bad experience with each one that I go to. There's this one road, it's called 249. It's literally nothing but like taco trucks everywhere. And also like Salvadorian trucks. Well, Honduran truck, so like I'll get pupusas, another go-to. Um, dang, what else? Baleadas, that's a Honduran dish. So good. So those are my main ones. And for like snacks, there's panaderias. So we get like our conchas or like our bread. So we can eat it with our coffee. Anywhere that we could find it, really. So yeah,
Yep.
that's
I,
mine.
I
I
also
love tacos like pizza, like some people love pizza, like tacos. I don't care if it comes in I don't care.
Yes,
One of the best
tacos
things
are
I've ever had in Old Town San Diego, a woman that runs her own tortilla truck, just a fresh tortilla off the griddle, slap some butter on it. I'm out. That's it. That's it.
I love fresh flour tortillas. That's like on a different level for me. Like, if I could, every time I go to a Mexican restaurant back in Houston, I always go for the tortillas and the frijoles charros. Delicious. Like that makes me happy. I'm so hungry.
I know it. I've not yet had lunch, and I'm like, nothing in my house compares to anything that has been described. All right.
I have Fruit
Next
Loops and
question.
leftovers, and that's not fair.
What is your all-time favorite TV theme song?
Oh, that's good.
I can answer this one quick.
All right,
Oh,
go
yeah,
ahead.
do
Ty.
it.
The Office. The
Oh, gosh.
Office. Just because that show, I think I've watched it, which 2021 hasn't been great for me because they took it off of Netflix. But I think I've watched it 8 times all the way through, and I hear it. I don't even have to watch it, and it just brings so much joy to my life. I mean, if I did the math, it'd probably be a depressing amount of dedication to one show.
I think based on like when television really became a thing for me as a product primarily of the 90s, I think like the Friends theme song is like the theme song of yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah, see, for me, it's Cheers,
Oh yeah, you
but
switched.
a similar kind of thing, like
Yeah.
the awareness of and certain age and watching.
Yep. And also it was like, it was, you know, people older than I was, but living this amazing life, and all of the characters stick out, and I've seen every episode, and yeah. So I think that's probably, I don't know that it's the best theme song, but it's certainly one of the catchiest, and all you have to do is half hear it and you know exactly. Jesus, it was on the like Name That Tune, the new version of Name That Tune. It was on it. And I was like, does it have a name other than Friends theme songs? It does have a name. But for me, it'll never be associated with anything but the show.
I'm trying to remember the Office's theme song. Tyler, hum a few bars.
Oh, yeah, there's no music. It's just music. There's no lyrics, right?
He's muted. He's pretending to hum and say,
Yeah, well, there are no words, so y'all don't have to hear me sing or pretend
I
to
said
sing.
hum. I believe I said hum.
Does anybody have a piano? Anybody carry one of those on them?
We need Brian to be on.
No
That's right.
doubt. Perfect cue for him.
Yeah, Happy Days, Hawaii Five-O is really good. Cheers, Dallas, Gravity Falls is decent. Yeah. All right.
As far as like my television watching habits, nothing beats the dun dun of any Law and Order. I'm just gonna say it. Dun dun. Somebody's about to die. It's happening. Where's Olivia
right.
Benson?
You got to put a theme song on top of Texas A&M University Texarkana. From TV to us. What is it? The lead into this, for example, Faculty Fridays and event showcases. I should play what theme song to represent Texas A&M?
It's probably the old version of the Beverly Hillbillies. That's probably it.
Adriana, what were you going to say?
Oh, honestly, the first thing that comes to my head, like it's not a song either, but it's just kind of like, you know, the noise over there off of Glee, and it's like do 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 do. Here's what you missed on Glee. So, that's what pops into my head.
Yeah.
Tyler, what were you going to say before I rudely interrupted you?
I was thinking, along Dr. Hinton's way of thinking, like Andy Griffith's show or something like that. It's you can just
Old nostalgic. Is that what you're after in them?
I don't know if that's the thing or maybe just sarcastic. I think that might be it for me.
Stop it, Chandler. I was also thinking like the Addams Family, right? Da-na-na-na. That's right. We could do that. We could all do that together.
Right.
Everybody would know it.
The thing that first pops into my head, and I can't explain why, is Mission Impossible.
Oh my gosh.
Dun, dun,
Yeah,
dun,
that's
dun,
good.
dun,
That's
dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. I don't know. I'm
I
not
think
sure
that's
why.
especially appropriate for trying to get into the building during the corona. Like when we had to go and meet the provost there so that he can scan us in because our
Yeah.
cards had been deactivated. It did feel a bit like Mission Impossible trying to get into the building. Like I want to get into my office. I have to give 2 weeks notice and I have to give up my cell phone number and have to be available on a moment's notice to go up there. Yeah, it did feel, that felt right.
One more question, then we'll let Corrine talk about her jam and what she does.
Right,
To
we were
end
doing that.
for as
Sounds
long as she likes. So on a scale of 1 to 10, so 1 to 10, 1 is hate,
Oh,
10 is love.
Okay.
How well do you like your first name?
oh, yeah, I feel like I'm a solid 8 or a 9. Yeah. Yeah, my sister's first name is Christina, and she has never gone by it. She hates it like with a passion. She also hates her middle name too, so she's screwed both ways. But I like mine. I had to endure very early on people mispronouncing it, and so that doesn't much bother me anymore unless I'm in a public setting and you're saying my name aloud and you still got it wrong. That's probably an issue, but you know. But yeah, I like my first name. It also has a nice little story about how it came to be the spelling that it is. I don't know if I've told you this. So I'm named, my dad took the name off the character from the old sitcom Soap. That's where he got my name. Okay, there was a character on an old sitcom named Corrine. And back in those days, you couldn't just like IMDb it or Google how to spell it. And so my dad waited for the next week's issue of TV Guide, which is how you found, they had the little blurbs about what was going to happen in the episode. So he's like, that's how I'll take it. So he watched the TV Guide until her name was mentioned, and that's how he wrote it down. But it happened to be that week it was a typo. The character's name is supposed to be 2 N's and 1 R, but when my dad wrote it down, it was 2 R's and 1 N, and that's why it looks like Corrine and sounds like Corrine. So my first name is a typo.
I'm a solid 8, 9 too. I can't imagine having it something other than Doug. I was supposed to be Austin. My father felt that wasn't masculine enough. Then mother came with Bradley, and I'm from East Peoria, and in Peoria there is a university called Bradley, and my father did not like the Bradley Braves, and so that was out. And so I'm eventually named after a football player, Doug Buffone,
Oh,
of
nice.
Chicago Bears. So
Right on.
that's how I got to be there.
Well, that's right. You're a Bears fan. Forgot that.
It's in my name, Corrine. I
It's
can't.
fine. I know. Sorry. It's fine.
The rest of you, how do you feel about your name?
I'm going to tell a quick story about my name.
Yeah. First,
so-
gotta give it a number first. Give your name a number.
You have to just rank it. You have to rank it.
I'm going to go like a 4 or 5.
Really?
It's not that I hate it, but first of all, I don't know an adult named Tyler. And obviously, I don't consider myself an adult. I don't know anyone older than myself that's named Tyler. So, you picture yourself as like an 80-year-old man. Tyler doesn't go with it. Second, so I asked my mom, I was like, so why Tyler? I just want to know. And apparently 1992, if you do the math, 28 was the year of Tyler's because I graduated with like 5 of us. So not only is it, I can't see it in the future, my future self being named Tyler, but second of all, it's extremely basic for 92.
Tylers are coming. That's the message.
Yep. Tylers are coming.
It's like the Austins now, Doug. All the Austins.
Uh-huh.
I think I'm like at a 5. I could leave it, love it. I don't know. As a kid, I hated it more. I think now I'm just kind of okay with it. Like it's okay. I think the one thing that I like about it is that it has the same amount of like letters as my last name. So like that's really satisfying to me when I write it down. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I think I prefer when people just call me Sam, because like Sam's cooler than Samantha, and like in my head. But I could have been a Savannah. That was one of the names my mom picked out for me, and I'm really glad she didn't go with that name because I don't think it suits me anymore. Also because my grandmother ruined it for her. She's told my mom that if she named me Savannah, she was going to call me Savana, which in Spanish is like a blanket, you know? So I was like, wow, okay, that's fine. That's okay. And then the other name that she had for me was Shane. And I kind of wish she had named me Shane because I actually love that name. It's such a cool name. And I'm like, but why? So then why? And it turns out my mom didn't name me. My sister did. Yeah, she was watching a soap opera with my grandmother at the time, and she fell in love with the character's name, and thus I am Samantha. I have jury's out on whether I forgive her for that one.
Both my mother and my father hated all of the female names in our line because I think the reach was like, well, we'll give her a family name, and then they were like, we don't like any of the family names, so we're just gonna not. It's like my grandmother's name is Eleanor and she goes by Nori, and my other grandmother's name was Ruth, and there was an Esther somewhere thrown in there, and thankfully they weren't so beholden to tradition that they were like, Esther it is.
I hate cutting off the conversation, but I do want to have an opportunity to have Corrine talk about what it is that she does when she's doing research. And so 12 minutes-ish or less, if you can. If not, and you need to bolt, you can go ahead and catch it on the recording or those type of things. But I do want to make sure people can get out the door at one with at least most, if not all of it, if you can, Corrine. I know that sort of cuts you off. And
that's super easy because I'm, like you said, I didn't prepare anything, so I'm just gonna kind of talk about it. My research sort of falls into three different areas. There's sort of three different pockets of research I'm interested in. The one that I'm probably most noted for, the one that I really took my first steps into, is veteran studies. Again, I told you before that I grew up as a military brat. Then I married into the military. My husband's a retired Marine Corps vet. And when I first started teaching in composition courses in my master's program, I had a lot of veterans in my courses, and I noticed that they were having some issues applying what they had learned in the military about writing to their own academic, right? They were living in these two communities and the two didn't have anything to do with each other. And I saw connections they didn't see. And so I became really interested in the student veteran transitional experience leaving the service. A lot of veterans, when they leave the service, they go to school because they have education. Well, many of them have education benefits. And so they're preparing themselves for what their post-service career is going to be. That means they're usually in higher ed classrooms, which operate very differently as a teaching and learning environment than any branch of the service does. And I became really interested in that teaching, learning, and writing trifecta as it affected veterans departing the service and then coming into higher education. So that's where I do the bulk of my work, is with student veterans, particularly in the writing area, what their writing experiences look like, how much do they use their military rhetorical knowledge in their academic writing experience, or as they get into their degree programs, you know, in engineering, how much do they use what they learned in the military in their writing experiences there. And then I've also sort of, as a jut out from that, become really interested in military caregivers and how they navigate their experiences in social media writing on Facebook. I'm a caregiver to my husband, and so I was also noticing that a lot of military caregivers, in working through that experience, turn to social media groups, both to exchange information and resources, but also as a way to kind of work out and process what they're going through. So there's a little sort of psychological component to that interest as well. So that's sort of one community. The second community of interest for me as a researcher is in the teaching of writing, particularly in like pre-service teacher students learning how to teach writing pedagogy, the best way to do it. The best way for me, I've always been a really self-reflective teacher. I want to be better next semester than I was this semester. And part of that is learning what works and what doesn't work, and really investing yourself in learning more about the choices that you're making and how that influences students. And so as a sort of active researcher, I'm always thinking about the things that are working and what's not working. And so part of my research is in that community as well. And then my really sort of nerd love recently, the last couple of years, has been just writing about television. I wrote a chapter about American Horror Story. I have 2 chapters coming out about the Australian series Wentworth. One's going to be in a compilation of Australian TV and cinema. And the other one is going to be a special compilation dedicated just to Wentworth and its 1970s predecessor, Cell Block H. And so writing about television, writing about characters, particularly destructive characters, anti-heroines, flawed women in a lot of ways, right? Because we're past the age of television where women are always depicted as either perfect professionals with no family life or perfect mothers with nothing else. And so we're sort of past that. We're past the Leave It to Beaver age of television and how women are represented on screen. And that's really interesting to me, particularly as we get more to intersectional characters who are not just one thing, but are many things. And that's really interesting to me. So those are kind of my three loves. That's what I do. Look, way less than 12 minutes.
Yes, no, thank you. The questions, comments, concerns, issue, troubles, problems, dilemmas, things provoked. Finding none, I'm going to stop the recording. And thank you all for coming. It's one of those things that I very much appreciate. It's a new venture for us. Tell your friends it's fun, it's interesting, it's engaging, all of those things. And I really need to learn to, when I stop recording,